Welcome to A Better HR Business, the podcast that looks at how HR consultants and HR tech firms grow their businesses and how they help their employers to get the best out of their people. Remember, for show notes and downloads, go to www.getmorehrclients.com/podcast. That's getmorehrclients.com/podcast. Okay, let's get started.
Hello, welcome back to the show. Great to have you along. And I'm really looking forward to today's conversation with another Benjamin Morone. Benjamin is a fascinating guy. He's an American based in Europe. And so we're going to be diving into the very cool business that he's built and is growing rapidly called Zabota. Before we get into all of that, Benjamin, thank you very much for joining me today.
Ben, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
No problem. And I am not a Benjamin. My full name is Benvenuto, which even weirdly, or more weird, means welcome in Italian. So I tried calling myself Benvenuto in Italy when I went traveling around there once, and I got people very confused. So stick with Benjamin. I think it's the easier option. Yeah, so just to clarify, people are always curious, an American in Europe, how did that happen?
Yeah, so it originally started, I guess I moved over here January of 2023. It was probably about 6 months into running my recruitment firm, Zabota. So what we do is we help different small businesses and growing companies hire overseas. So if it's in Central and Eastern Europe, or if it's in Latin America, mainly serving US, UK, and Dubai-based businesses.
Nice.
And so I decided to move over here really to have a local presence with a lot of the talent. We were sourcing a lot from Poland at the time in Central and Eastern Europe. And so we really found the best talent if we have a local brand presence. There's a lot of job scams and online remote work scams that people find through maybe Telegram channels or Facebook. And so us actually being here and being like, no, we're here in Poland, like this is where we're operating from. It helped build a lot of trust for the candidates who we may have not have gotten if we were just an online remote company back in the States.
Very good, yeah. So I have personally, both in my corporate career and also running the business, many times have hired people from different countries and continue to do so. So I work with some amazing people in Central Europe, Eastern Europe. Not so much Latin America for me, just because that's my time zone differences, but certainly in other countries. So I think it's such a growing and helpful service. So what kind of companies do you help and what kind of roles do you fill?
Yeah, so I would say the majority of our clients are more on the marketing agency side, smaller businesses, I would say under 5 headcount. So maybe it's a first-time founder. Maybe it's the second hire or third hire that they're making. That's a big part of our clients. And then we have larger clients who are 50 to 200 headcount. And it's pretty evenly split in that range. IT companies, obviously IT outsourcing is a massive thing. Poland, Ukraine, Eastern Europe for back offices inside of the States. But I would say those are kind of our main clients that we're servicing. For the small business owners, executive assistants, project managers, if they're a specialized type of agency, maybe they're a meta ads agency, then media buyers, Amazon, like PPC media buyers, those types of roles. And then for those larger clients, it can be onboarding specialists, customer service representatives, and then anything that's in the IT realm.
Yeah. For me, that's one of the strengths of this kind of model is that you can hire people for specific roles. They're typically full-time, but it's not always the case. But they have such expertise, but flexibility, and you're not necessarily holding team building events and chats around the foosball table, all that kind of stuff. It's very delivery focused, but you still have some great conversations and friendships that can come out of that. But do you find that's why people are using, or what's kind of driving it towards Zabota?
Some of it is cost and those types of things, but the other side of it is maybe some diverse perspectives, some access to some talent that has worked in larger corporations with different standard operating procedures and different techniques that maybe a small business owner, first-time founder, wouldn't be able to have access to. They're building their first company. They're not really sure what the best way to get results are for this client. If they bring in someone who's an expert in that field, they're going to have a lot of knowledge coming into the business that, let's say in the States or in Canada, they wouldn't be able to afford or get access to until much later in the game of growing their business.
Yeah, got it. I've said before on this podcast, I've got one of the team members who assists doing some amazing things in providing content and other management pieces in our business. And she's in Central to Eastern Europe. And then we've got Facebook experts in Ukraine, Google Ads experts in South Africa and others. Again, I would urge people listening to this to consider how they could leverage that and expand their workforce or get stuff done in a much more scalable easier way. How does Zabota work? At what point do you sort of step in and step out?
Yeah. So walking through our hiring process, mainly we're meeting with the founders or the small business owners. We kind of discuss what is that role that you're hiring for. Some come to our calls and they're like, hey, I have this exact job description. I'm hiring for a media buyer. It's pretty clear they need to hire exactly for that role, right? Other times the first time founders are fulfilling in their business and they're just like, I'm working 24/7. I don't really know like what role I need to hire for. So we kind of help them through that process. We kind of say, hey, well, let's do a time audit. Let's figure out really where those hours are going, because you might not actually even need to hire. You might just be able to eliminate a lot of the busy work by just stop doing it. It's very easy to get kind of stuck in work that feels like work, but it's not actually work. So we kind of walk through that process with them. After they're ready to hire, we've narrowed down that role. Our team gets going with the sourcing, the testing, the vetting, the interviewing, and we basically deliver on a silver platter 3 to 5 candidates for that person to bring into second round interviews, do their own set of testing, maybe a culture fit interviews, multiple decision makers, meeting that person who would be joining their team, depending on the size of the company, and then help them with kind of finalizing that decision. So helping with the onboarding, helping them figure out payment methods. So we don't like run internal like payroll. It's not like we're taking a percentage of wage or anything like that off of a placement. We help them figure out, okay, what's the best way to do payroll between the two parties? What's the most effective way?
And then not necessarily at the prices as such, but how do you structure the payment? Is that fee for placement? Is there, service fee? How does it work?
Yeah, so it's a fee for placement, but it's split up. And then we also have another model where we basically have unlimited type of hires. And so we're on retainer monthly. And then we have guarantees and basically like a replacement insurance. Our normal single placement, let's say you're a small business owner, comes to us, they want a single placement. We give them a 90-day guarantee. If anything happens in those 90 days, they need a replacement. We'll replace them for free. Past that, they can pay a low monthly fee and basically have this replacement insurance on it.
Nice. I think, normally on this show, I talk about the HR side of things / recruitment and also the marketing and the business growth stuff. But there's a kind of a crossover in the fact that you're very big on getting testimonials, feedback from happy clients, which I think, well, let me ask you, why do you do that?
A big part of it is I feel like every testimonial we get, even if they don't get a million views on YouTube, we'll get at least 1 or 2 more clients that come in because they saw that exact testimonial. They're like, oh, I want that transformation that individual went through. So part of it is the client side of things where we're getting more clients, but it's also a benefit for the clients as well. So they get to showcase their story and kind of what they've been through. And I've had clients actually get conversations and get interesting introductions based off of YouTube interviews they've done. And so it's a good thing where it kind of works both ways.
Interesting. So how do you actually get the testimonials to happen? Because I know many businesses, many consultants might be shy or think, no, I can't ask for that. How do you do that?
So we kind of have a standard operating procedure on it. So our head recruiter handles a lot of the client communication, especially once it gets towards the end of the engagement. And we basically follow up a week after placement and we say, hey, like, how's everything going? Basically to check in and make sure that everything's moving smoothly. There's no issues. Then we'll ask, hey, referrals and testimonials are a huge part of our business. Is there any way that we could get or request a testimonial from you? If no, that's totally fine. There's no pressure to do it, but we need feedback on how to improve our service to make it testimonial worthy. And so you can kind of take an angle that's not like, Ben, please give me a testimonial now. Like, it doesn't need to be this kind of needy angle. It can be a lot more nuanced and open and just say, hey, we would love one. If you're not comfortable, that's totally fine, because sometimes clients aren't comfortable with getting on camera or having some sort of like an endorsement, depending on the industry they're in. But when we kind of give them those two options where they can give us private feedback or they can give us kind of public praise, that works very, very well. And sometimes it takes a little bit of following up just because a video testimonial or a written testimonial isn't at the top priority of a business owner's list, and so you have to not be afraid to follow up, but usually you follow up maybe one more time via email and they'll send it over.
Yeah, that's great advice. And so for people listening to this, there's a couple of things in there. One is the fact that Benjamin mentioned SOP or standard operating procedures, that it's built in. So the vast majority of consulting firms and many, many startup technology firms, referrals and word of mouth, that immediate network is the number one source of new business. So it's great, Benjamin, that you've done that and it's built into your system. And then secondly, you're actually thinking about how can we help the client? How can we actually make this useful for them? Not just doing us a favor, but you're helping get the word out there about their business and also potentially improving your own services, getting feedback in such a way that you can, improve Zabota through that feedback. So I think that's really clever, really proactive way. What other methods are you doing to get the word out about Zabota?
Yeah, so I would say Twitter, especially when we were first growing, or Twitter or X as it's referred to now, is one of the major kind of lead acquisition or client acquisition areas. I don't have a method for getting clients. It's not like a follow this method, post 5 times a day, and suddenly you'll have clients in 90 days. It's not rinse and repeat like that. But I found Twitter's algorithms really good in showing you what you engage with and showing you similar accounts to that. And so if you have people you follow on LinkedIn who also create content on Twitter, even if you're brand new, you can go follow those 5, 10 accounts that you normally watch, and then you'll get even more to kind of follow and interact with. In Twitter, it's very casual in the way that people communicate on there. So I feel like the barriers with maybe LinkedIn, where people feel they need to be super professional or they're a little hesitant to outreach, and maybe someone's judging them too much on their resume or their profile. On Twitter, it's a lot more casual in the communication. So I think it's a lot easier to start new conversations. At least that's what I've found.
Right. So I'm not really active on X or Twitter. Does that mean you're just posting articles or thoughts at the time, and then if people like the stuff that you reply to them, or what's the deal there?
I pretty much reply to almost every comment on there, like and reply. People don't engage as much. There's a lot of like impressions. So it'll be like 1,000 impressions and it'll be like 2 likes, and sometimes it's a little bit different, but I always try to reply to the comments, and usually people are pretty receptive with like follow backs. So if you follow someone, they commented, then you follow them back. Commenting on other accounts and just kind of adding value, but not in the sense of, oh, we're just going to add a fluff post that's like, hey, great post, or wow, insight, but actually your true opinion. You can get some interesting dialogues inside of Twitter from that. And it doesn't take thousands of followers. I think I only have 500 maybe, and that's not a lot when it comes to Twitter.
But it's those small ripples, everything flows onto something else. What would you say to people who, whether it be Twitter or LinkedIn, they say, oh, they're commenting and liking and following other people's posts. That sounds like too much effort, or it's a lot of time and hard work. What are your thoughts?
I think you can just substitute your normal scrolling of social media with that active kind of, I don't even want to call it work, because putting in comments on social media is not too much work, but just kind of swap whatever your leisure time is, where you're just kind of scrolling Instagram or whatever it may be, whatever social media you use the most, and say, okay, I'm going to just do this on LinkedIn. For me, I don't have Twitter on my phone. I just have it on my desktop. And so it doesn't feel like I'm getting stuck in it. Most social medias are only on my desktop. So it's very work focused. Like my laptop's work time. It's not really leisure time. So you can kind of protect your mentality and work time if it's just isolated.
So I'm a bit older. I've got kids and stuff. So I'm a part-time taxi driver, it feels like. And when we're waiting for games to start, I do have those things. I'm also LinkedIn on my phone, and I will add the comments and stuff like that. But I think that's a smart way to do it, is have on the desktop and you focus. And if you're going to be on those sites anyway, why not use it to build a business? 2 other things I wanted to quickly check. One is, it's great to see you on this show. Are you doing more of that? And do you find that getting out there in PR or getting the word out via interviews and things, do you find that helpful, or is that something you plan to do more of in the future?
I definitely plan to do it more often in the future. I've just kind of started reaching out and getting on more podcasts in the last couple of weeks. So those podcast episodes are still in production.
Sure.
But next week we should have a couple come out. And so I'm excited to see how they do and just kind of have new connections and new opportunities and meet more people.
Nice. So then the last bit connected to that, making more connections and meeting new people, does Zabota work with referral partners to help promote the business?
Yes. So we have a referral program. For every person that you send over to us that ends up becoming a client, you'll get paid out $500. So that's our referral program. We like to partner with anyone who has kind of a list of our ideal clients or where our ideal clients would be looking. So we have some different agencies, maybe they're paid agencies. They're working with fast moving businesses that are growing and need more workers. So we have different kind of relationships with them. Some private equity holding companies. We have some good relationships with some others there, and that helps as well. But we're always happy to look into any industry that we can.
Okay, so in my world, in the HR consulting side of the world, you've got learning, development, diversity, inclusion, whatever it may be. You're in there with different clients, and if you see that they have either bottlenecks, stuff not getting done, which is affecting the areas that you're consulting on, you might be able to help them out by saying, well, let's get some roles filled so we can focus on the adding value and the more strategic stuff that you want to be focusing on. Here's a solution, go to Zabota, and, if you refer them in, then there's that referral fee. So for people listening, that's an option for you to generate revenue, but also to help your clients and improve some of their challenges, get rid of those bottlenecks, etc. So you do check that out. What's next for Zabota? And then if people want to learn more about you, what should they do next?
Yeah, so as far as what's going to next is we've been developing some internal tools. So a lot of like the vetting and it's skill testing. So we have some of those tools and kind of almost like an alpha version. They're pre-beta, and we've been developing them here for the last probably 4 or 5 months. And so probably releasing those to the public. We've been getting really good feedback from candidates using the different tools and going kind of through this testing process. So we're expecting to launch that hopefully soon. Still kind of narrowing down the roadmap and making sure the product's really, really solid before we release it even more. And that's kind of the main focus is those tools, but then also just consistently delivering for our clients and growing the business on that side. As far as where you can connect with us on LinkedIn, Benjamin Morone, my last name, Morone. Twitter, it's the same handle. With YouTube, Zabota Staffing is the YouTube @ or tag, but if you search Zabota, it will come up. We have over 100 different videos on talent acquisition, client interviews, breaking down different things that we're seeing in the recruitment from these different foreign countries.
Wow. Okay. So we'll have the links to the Twitter, to the YouTube accounts, and also to the business website. So if you're listening to this on the go, check the show notes. But it sounds like it's a wonderful opportunity for growing the business, and you've done a great job so far. So I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us today on A Better HR Business, the podcast that explores the world of HR consulting and HR tech businesses. For show notes and downloads, go to www.getmorehrclients.com/podcast. That's getmorehrclients.com/podcast. Remember to subscribe and share the show with any friends who are busy growing a HR business. Thanks, and see you next time.